Hello there, welcome to my channel. Today's story is a response to a prompt from our community. So, let's jump into it. I was born in the year 2489 at an off-world colony that had been established decades ago by the last of the old empire. People who lived back when Earth was still a world and not just a name. My father was the colony administrator, an old man even by human standards. Though young for an age, he'd retired from the Navy with the rank of Rear Admiral and had gone to work for the Colonial Defense Force. After the Empire fell and the independence took over, he died the year I was born, which is why I never knew him. But his absence left a hole in my mother's heart that she never stopped grieving. She'd always tell me how much he loved the stars, how he used to sit on the balcony in the evenings watching them shimmer in the black sky. And then he would point out the constellations, the ones that were the same as on Earth, and explain to her how they came to be. Constellations that we, the colonies, no longer had the technology to leave and see for ourselves. My mother worked in the hydroponics, but even though she could have afforded to hire someone else to take care of our small apartment in its garden, she couldn't bear to stay away from the plants. Maybe because their silent company reminded her of her late husband, or maybe because she just loved them. The only sounds in our home were the hum of the lamps and the whisper of air being pumped through the pipes. Most evenings when I came home from school, I would find her talking to the tomatoes like an old friend. I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to ask her questions about my father. But whenever I tried, she would stop speaking and turn around, eyes dull and empty, like the thousand stars in the sky. In the evenings, when I sat down to dinner, I would look up at the artificial skylight, a round opening in the ceiling that revealed the blackness of space filled with hundreds of pinpoints of light. I would trace the patterns the lights made in the dark and dream of the day. I would leave the colony and go see the stars up close. The elders called it the colony's curse, this obsessive desire to leave, the longing in our blood that drew us toward the stars. We didn't know what was out there, but we all knew we needed to find out. It wasn't a question of if, but when. When I turned 16, I joined the Explorers Guild. They gave us a rundown ship, a single-person scout, barely able to move through the void. But for me, it didn't matter. On my first mission, I found a rock and landed beside it. Then I got out of the ship and onto the rock. The finest Huffier grit under my boots, I danced with joy. Finally, I touched the stars. Not exactly as I had dreamed, but it was a star. I named the rock constellation Prime and declared it my home. I stayed there for 10 days until the guild sent a transport to fetch me and bring me back to the colony. But I didn't stay there long. As soon as I had saved enough credits to afford a better ship, I was gone again, exploring, seeking adventure and fortune among the stars. When I was 20, I discovered an asteroid belt with plenty of minerals worth mining. I returned to the colony a hero. The guild gave me a bigger ship, a double-person prospector. With it, I went out again to seek more riches and glory. This time, I found a gas giant and landed in its upper atmosphere, where I drifted along the clouds for weeks, measuring winds and recording data. By now, most of my fellow explorers had found something worth exploiting, and either settled down to run their own mine or continued exploring, charting new systems and collecting data for the guild. I was the only one who hadn't yet found anything worthwhile. I was beginning to feel desperate. I needed to find something, anything to prove myself before my peers beat me to it. Then it happened. I was flying past a yellow dwarf logging data for the guild when my instruments detected a large object approaching fast. I turned my ship around and followed it. Whatever it was big. It looked like a planetoid. I flew alongside it, marveling at its sheer size. Never before had I seen such a massive chunk of rock floating in space. I wondered if it had a name, if anyone knew how it got there, or if it had any resources worth exploiting. I needed to land on it so I could chart its surface and report back to the guild. As I approached the surface, I noticed something strange. There seemed to be structures on the planetoid, towers, ramps and bridges crisscrossing the entire thing. They looked ancient, yet somehow familiar. Were those ruins? Ruins of what? I circled the planetoid a few times trying to get a closer look. That's when I saw the inscriptions on the tower. They were written in the old tongue, the language the ancients used back on Earth before the cataclysm that forced humanity to flee into the stars. There was only one place I could go to learn what the inscriptions said. The Grand Library on New Shanghai. I set course for it immediately. Over the next few days, I pored over the archives, searching for an answer. Finally, I found it. The planetoid was named Titan. It was part of a lost colony that had been here long before the Empire fell. A colony that had reached out to the stars and touched them, just like my father had dreamed. I raced back to my ship. I had to go back to Titan. I had to find out if anyone was there, if any of the ancients' descendants still walked the ruin. The journey took another week. I arrived back at Titan and prepared for landing. Maybe this time I wouldn't fly past unnoticed. Maybe the descendants of the ancients would shoot at me. Then I could fight back and defend myself. Maybe they would welcome me as a long-lost brother. So many possibilities ran through my head, each more exciting than the last. As I descended, I could see the details on the surface clearer than before. There were farms and factories, homes and workplaces, everything that was needed to sustain life, everything that the colony had brought with them from Earth. It was a self-sustaining colony, just like the one I had grown up in. It was perfect. Why did they leave? What happened here? Did the ancients abandon it? Did they die out? Was it destroyed by some catastrophe? Or was it taken over by aliens? So many questions without answers. I found a patch of flat ground and sat down. Then I got out of the ship and walked toward the nearest tower. I wanted to touch it, to feel its ancient smoothness beneath my hand. I reached out and pressed my palm against the cold metal. Suddenly, the ground shook and a door slid open in the tower. I jumped back in surprise, knocking my helmet on the ground. It dented, but I didn't care. I was too stunned to notice. A ramp extended from the tower to the ground, and a rampart climbed it slowly. It was tall and slender with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. It wore a simple robe that flowed behind it like a pool of liquid darkness. Behind the rampart, others appeared, more rampart, all silently gliding down the ramp. They stood there looking at me, their eyes boring into mine. I was trapped between the gravitational pull of their stairs and the magnetic pull of the tower itself. One of them stepped forward. Its lips parted and a voice echoed in my head. "Who are you?" I scrambled back, tripping over my own feet. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I pointed at myself. Ira. I finally managed to say, "My name is Ira." The rampart inclined its head. "Welcome to Titan, Ira. I am Raptus. We have been expecting you." Expecting me? Why? What did they know? How long had they been waiting? Why did you come here? I asked. Why did you follow me? Raptus took a step forward. Because we need your help, Ira. You are the first of the descendants of the ancients to return to Titan. You are the key to our future. Wait, so we weren't the descendants of the ancients. We were the descendants of the Independents, who had fled the Earth after the cataclysm, while they were the descendants of the old Empire, who had built Titan before it was abandoned. We were two different species, but both of us children of the same people. Raptus gestured with a hand, and suddenly more ramparts appeared, forming a circle around me. I was trapped. I tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. "What do you want from me?" I whispered, my voice shaking. One of the ramparts behind Raptus stepped forward. It was smaller than the others and had kind eyes. "We need you to teach us about the outside world, Ira. Our ancestors sealed Titan away from the rest of the galaxy long ago. Now we don't know what's out there. We don't know if we're alone." And I knew exactly what to do.